Okay, hi all. Welcome to our Chill and Chat Zoom series. And today we have Amanda Brennan with us. And Amanda, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I graduated with my MLIS in 2011, which feels like a million years ago now. And I did a social media specialization. Since then, I spent some time at Know Your Meme, archiving memes. Then I was at Tumblr for 7 years, where I was the head of editorial and community stuff there. And I just started a new job as the senior director of trends at a social agency called XX Artists.
So you are the meme librarian. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about how that came about, or that title, how you were bestowed upon with that title?
Yeah. Um, I so when I got into librarianship, I was super active on librarian Twitter, and it was just kind of a meme within the librarian community to be blank librarian. So there's like the sketch librarian who like she was really active in drawing and sharing her art. Like wine librarian is what I think of. Like everyone had these like meme kind of names, and I was at Know Your Meme. I was like, I should just be meme librarian, and then it stuck.
Yeah, everyone has to. When I had to create a Twitter account for like library school, I had to be like, what kind of librarian title can I give myself?
Yeah.
Nothing creative, because I just couldn't think of anything witty, but because all the witty ones have already been taken. But Julie, I mean, Christy brought up a good point. There was a social media, I can't ever pronounce this, specialization
Yeah.
at the time, because I don't think so I took a social media class, but it was like a special topics class. And it was
Interesting.
like designing, understanding, and something else with social media. And it was mostly for the data people, but I was like the only
Okay.
librarian student in it, but I was just interested in knowing like the fundamentals of social media and sort of like the back end of it. So it was really interesting, but that was just a random special topics class that they offered.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I don't know when it stopped being a thing, but my first semester was the first semester they offered it. And I started in 2009. So, and also kind of like the whole landscape of social media was very different 10 years ago. So I think that could be a reason that it's not a thing anymore, because I feel like social media is so embedded in everything information-y now. But I took a lot of courses around like database design and metadata. And the one that like really was my cornerstone class was just like a special topics and social media course, but it was in the library program. More Naman was the professor, and he had done a whole bunch of work on tagging on Flickr, which like really kind of aligned with my brain because I love tagging. Um, I tell this story. I was just telling the story to someone today to kind of like get them to understand how my brain works. But when I was a teenager, there was this website called Audio Galaxy, which doesn't exist anymore. And it just had all of these music genres. It is like Spotify, but there was no MP3 aspect to it. Um, you could pick a genre and then it'll show you like all the bands and like all the subgenres, and you can like go down a rabbit hole. And then once you got to a band, it would be like, oh, here's all the connected bands and here's the label and all of that. And it was like a mind map almost of every band you could think of. And it was like a user generated website. It was very similar to Wikipedia almost. And I spent all of my time in it and like really wrapping my head around the metadata of it and the way that people like the nuances that people were tagging. And I just like was fascinated with how niche people could get, and like how once you're in that niche, like that's your whole world. And at the time, it didn't really like click to me because I was, like 13 and it was 2001. But that's when I really started thinking about like, okay, like I need to know everything about this aspect of whatever music I am into. And like I wanted to know the history, and then I wanted to know like what inspired those people. And I really just became just so obsessed with like knowing everything about like these bands from like 1998 and then the 80s, and then it just like just felt really good to my brain to like have the structure. And I know we have gone a long journey, but when I took this class at Rutgers and I heard more talk about his Flickr work, it immediately clicked to me um, that I could study tagging on Tumblr. And again, it was my second semester, so it was maybe like 2009, 2010. So Tumblr was still really new. And I remember having to explain in every single class I took what Tumblr was to my classmates. And I was just fascinated because it was user generated metadata, but also on Tumblr specifically, people use metadata as sentences. So, and again, like Tumblr was also the first place to have a reblog function that was more endemic than a share. Also, my cat has joined the call. This is Socks. Say hi, Socks. um, and and that the way that reblogs were introduced to the social media network, getting people to think about the way that they shared content, that metadata didn't travel as you shared. So you could post something, like say you're posting a picture of your cat and you want to tag it cat, tuxedo cat, furry, like cute, but you also like want to put a little message like, I love my cat so much, he's the best. And that was a metadata tag that you could add that wouldn't travel if like so many people reblog the photo of your cat. Like once it's 3-4 pieces down the line, that person who's reblogging it doesn't give a shit about the original poster. They like, oh, that cat is cute. They're not in tune to why that original person shared the content. And the metadata tags were this way to say like, you have a secret kind of way of speaking to your mutuals, the people who follow you, that it's almost like a whisper network where you're just like, all right, I post this content, you see it, like it'll live forever in my space, literally my space, but not really. But it'll live forever there and then not go on with it. Oh, so does the chat get recorded or should I like repeat the question back?
It would be great if you could just read the question out. Sorry, I can also read my own questions. My cat is now quieter, but okay. I didn't want to butt in while you were talking.
Oh no, please go ahead.
But yeah, so I can read my own question, which was, does that, so what you're talking about with the tags not traveling, does that help to prevent the congestion of a tag? Like what happened with the Black Lives Matter support, like black squares with the Black Lives Matter hashtags, where like people were using them for organizing, and then like all of Instagram was just like black squares. It's like not super helpful.
Kind of, but also not really, because in the case of Instagram, there's also an algorithm issue. And like the way Instagram's algorithm works is like when you search for something, the content that's going to have the most engagement will bubble up to the top. And in the black square case, like everyone was posting it, like all these celebrities, like big accounts, and of course like that's going to bubble up to the top of the search results. And like I think people ended up like putting their tags off into like, or that's not the right word, like siphoning the tag, like using like BLM New Jersey or something like that. And I think to bring it back to Tumblr, since it is the platform I know the best, it's kind of like how WLW as a tag for women who love women started to become its own community, because like tags like lesbian were so full of other content where they just like, it was just people who wanted to like make shit posts about being gay, or like talk about how much they want to take their girlfriend to a cabin in the woods and like live a cottagecore life. So it's interesting how like these bigger tags will get flooded, but at the same time, like you can't, you as one user like can't really control the amount of other people trying to get into a tag. So you siphon off and you create these communities. I also think of like actually autistic as a tag that a community found and designated for each other, because like someone who's more pedestrian, who's just gonna like post like, oh, this is news about someone with autism, let me tag it autistic. Like actually autistic is a way for people in that community to find each other at a different level, rather than someone who's just sharing something very high level. So does that answer your question? I feel like we went on a little journey there.
I mean, it answered more questions, I think, than I actually had, in the sense that I got more information out of that than I was expecting, but that's awesome. And it does, well, it both answered my question and answered more than my question. So yeah.
Okay, great.
I like the metadata. When you're talking about the metadata and the tagging, it's so funny because that's catalog, you know, the essence of cataloging and all the subdivisions that are involved in it. And, you know, I do find that I guess librarians do sort of compartmentalize that in a way. You know, you find something you like and then you just go right down the rabbit hole and then you find everything that, you know, that pertains to that one thing you like. So were there any other, I haven't seen any other social media classes other than the one I mentioned, but was there anything else that you took that allowed you to have like that social media concentration? Or it's interesting that they don't, I wonder if they'll bring it back now, considering how the pandemic has affected libraries and how everyone is literally online all the time.
Yeah. I took a course and I don't remember who taught it or what the course was, but I did research on Anonymous, and it's again really weird to look back on it, because it was such a different world of social media back then. Anonymous like wasn't a thing that most people knew about. Like 4chan wasn't something that the average person knew about. So it was really, really cool to work on that. And looking back, it's like, oh my God, like this has evolved into something so much bigger. I took a database design course where I learned SQL, and that was the thing that like has been such a gift in my career. What I didn't get into, but at Tumblr, I was able to kind of tie in all of that SQL knowledge and all of the metadata knowledge to build a taxonomy. So fandom.tumblr.com has a list of, well, every Monday it publishes the top TV shows, movies, music, etc. It's kind of like Nielsen rankings, but just for the platform. And I was able to design the taxonomy from scratch, because Tumblr is a very weird place that is unlike, like if we were to download like a taxonomy database and start there, like Tumblr is so niche in its interests, like we would have had to do more work. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to build the taxonomy backwards. They gave me 100,000 line spreadsheet of the most used tags, and I was like, cool, I will like thread these out into whatever they belong. It started out as just a one-to-one relationship where we could be like Supernatural is a TV show, Jensen Ackles is an actor, Dean Winchester is a TV character. And over the years that I was there, it grew into a whole hierarchical system where we could be like, okay, TV shows, like Supernatural TV shows, Supernatural, and then all the characters, titles, like and get all the tags there, which actually helped build our ad targeting back end. I say our because I was there for so long, but I'm no longer there. Their ad targeting back end. And it really helped inform how the site understood tags in relation to each other. And that was truly like the biggest feat of librarianship that I've had in my career. And it's helped me, like, moving on now, I'm able to do a lot of research and I sit and I'll like, I'm researching right now like macro trends in the world. So something I'm looking at right now is how we've all been in the pandemic so long. We are all finding new ways to interact with the things in our home, whether it's like making really weird cleaning decisions. Like there's an account where they just like put everything, like they mess up their house just to clean it up for that satisfaction of cleaning it up, or people who put weird things in garlic presses. And then but another trend we're looking at is I don't have like a name for it, but it's like once you explain it, it makes sense. People who film themselves doing something very mundane and then tell a story over it. So like on YouTube, there's a guy who works at a Subway and builds Subway sandwiches while he's just like telling a story about his life. And that is like, it feels so mundane, is like, you're getting this look at what this guy does every day. He like probably makes hundreds of sandwiches a day and like it's just second nature to him, but it's also kind of like, ooh, a peek behind the curtain. But you're getting this like small talk that the world just kind of doesn't have right now. Like you get a look into just someone's life. It kind of reminds me a little bit of podcasting, where like people aren't commuting, and while people still might listen to podcasts, like it's hard to just sit and be like, oh, like I'm going to pay attention to something in my headphones for 2 hours. Like the way we've shifted in how we consume media is also a part of it. And so I spend a lot of my time just like thinking about like, oh, people are doing this weird thing. What does it mean that we're doing it? Like, why are we putting things in garlic presses as a culture?
I keep saying I can't wait for all the studies and the graphs and all the information that's going to come out of like what life was like from 2020 to like 2022, and to just look back on it in even 5 years from now and have that, that be that removed from it. So to just be so interesting, just how we're like, why did we put things in, garlic presses? Or but it's so funny because I've talked about it a little before. I used to listen to audiobooks because I would drive from like Bergen County to New Brunswick every day, and I would listen to so many audiobooks, and now I literally can't listen to an audiobook because I'm like, I need to do other stuff while listening, and then I don't listen to half the book anyway. So it's interesting that people are trying to get that same fix in different ways.
It's weird also how, like, at least for me, my attention span has totally changed. As someone who had, like, I live in New Jersey still, but I commuted to Manhattan. I like had that hour and a half every day, twice a day to like do whatever on the train. And now I don't have it. So it's like, oh, I feel like I need to take advantage of having these 3 hours of my life back. And I remember when the pandemic first started, I was like, oh, I need to do everything all of the time. And I feel like my attention span just hasn't recouped yet. I've been reading a book for like a month and I read like 4 pages at a time. Whereas like this book is like 100 something pages. It is 200 pages exactly. Also, I highly recommend this book. It's called No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, and it's about the internet. It's fiction, but it's basically like the right amount of brain broken that everyone has on the internet. Oh, Sarah, did you like it? Sorry, I'm like creeping in the chat.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that I was going to be perceived because I'm new and sometimes we just show up and listen. I'm like, oh, I'm expected to like be here and talk. I did like it a lot. It was the perfect amount of brain broken. I don't want to take up too much time, but
Oh,
I
it's
did
okay.
cry a lot at
Good
the
to
end.
know.
No spoiler.
I'm not at the
I think
crying yet.
that's all I'll say. Sorry. Back to mute.
Yeah, it's okay. And Christy, just catching up, I am working on a book proposal right now, and it's very hard.
So speaking a little bit of, so now that, you know, we touched upon a little bit, how the pandemic has affected libraries and changed everything to online, and everyone's trying to find, you know, their online presence. I have a couple libraries that are always looking for like social media volunteers. So it's been interesting because I work at the graduate department, I'm a graduate assistant too. So we try to farm some of those out to like the communication majors because, you know, social media is their niche, but they also, it's, you know, there's such a misconception as to what libraries do and how they're perceived online. And I think the hardest thing is always coming up with a hashtag. So I don't know if you have any advice, Amanda, on how
That's
to
a
like
good
create a
question.
good hashtag that'll like, because that's my problem. Everyone's like, well, let's think of a hashtag. And I was like, first of all, my brain stopped working once the pandemic started. So I can't string words, sentences, I don't know. But I feel like, because that's what everyone's looking for. Everyone's looking for like that one hashtag that's just going to propel your content everywhere. I don't know if you can speak to that a little.
Keeping, if you're going to create like a brand new hashtag, keep it short. Like don't make it too long. And if it's multiple words, like capitalizing like each word, so it can be read by screen readers. There are tools online where I think of later.com, which is a free service for Instagram, where you can put in a hashtag and it'll show you suggestions. And the best part about Later is that it also shows you about how many posts are in the hashtag. So you can, and I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure that's part of the free version. I was using it as a paying user, so just to take that with a grain of salt, but it would tell you like, oh, this hashtag has 18,000 posts in it, but this hashtag only has 7,000 posts. So you'd probably want to go with something that's more in the middle rather than like the biggest hashtag, because that's going to get drowned out. The middle, like if people are following it, and sometimes it'll tell you like how many people are following a hashtag on Instagram. The more you can find something that's like not quite the biggest thing, but also definitely not the smallest thing, finding that happy medium. And it's definitely trial and error. But also I think when it comes to libraries is not just thinking in your community on social media. Like one of my favorite library stories, a librarian named Colleen Thyssen out of Iowa. She was at the college and they had a whole miniature collection of books. I mean, the collection of miniature books. And she turned them into amazing gifts and posted it onto Tumblr. I think it's like UI Spec Call is a special collections. If you Google it, it'll come up. But the way that she was able to transform this very niche, unique collection into something that could be consumed by anyone who just loves books or like loves weird gifts, like the way that she would like open up the tiny books and then make them move. And one of the most famous gifts from that blog was a book with a painting on, I don't know the word, but like there was a full painting on this. So she just like made a gif of going like this, and it was incredible. I still like find that gif sometimes on social media. Someone will share it without attribution. But just thinking outside of the box with your content, like what does your library have that makes it unique, that someone who will never visit your library due to geographical issues will be interested in? And oh, forage, that is a great word. But like thinking about how, because even though your library is local, like there are people who are so interested in things like that. And like history stuff always does well. Because people love to know where things came from.
That's true. I do love a good origin story.
Yeah.
um, so I don't know if anyone has any other questions or if, oh, go ahead, Christy.
I just want to ask one quick question because I'm curious. What did you go into the program like wanting to do with your degree? Because I mean, I think most people, I'm assuming most people who do an MLIS are sort of expecting to work in a library, and you've kind of made library things happen wherever you go, but it doesn't sound like you worked in an actual library so far.
I've never worked in an actual library. I also, it's funny when you brought up cataloging. I dropped out of cataloging with a W because I had such a bad time in it. But it was also like a class where like all of the tests were required to be on paper, and it was like, it was not for me. But I've always loved libraries. I've always loved information more. So when I went, there wasn't just a I don't know what it is, but it's just the information studies like that. It was just all one MLIS. So I was like, oh, like I'll get this and just not really do the L. I I've told this story like a million times and it's so silly, but I was working in the mall after I graduated with my BA because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know, I'll just, like, I applied to hundreds of jobs. I graduated in 2008. So like, that was a bad time. And one of these girls I went to high school with came in my store and was like, hey, I'm applying to Rutgers Library School. I think you would love it. And like, she really wanted to be a school librarian. Like she knew what she was about. And I was like, well, I'm bored. Like, I'll just apply. So Rutgers was the only school I applied to. If I got in, I got in and I did. And I was like, cool, I guess I'm going to just do this now. And I never really had a plan. I was just like, it'll happen. And just to put it in some context, my senior year of college, I broke my leg in half. And like, I tripped over something and I was sober. It was a really dumb freak accident, but I had to give up applying to grad school at that time. Like I had to give up my thesis. I had to like completely pivot all of the shit that I had planned my senior year of college. It happened like September 16th of my senior year. So I lost a semester basically. I had to like pivot all of these things. And I was like, well, I can't plan. Like if I had worked so hard my entire college career, I wanted to go into linguistics, which is why my handle is continuance everywhere, because it's a word for vowels. And I was like, oh, I'll be a linguistics professor with this dumb Twitter handle. And I'm stuck with it now. But I had to like pivot my whole idea of myself. So I'm like, okay, like I'm just gonna go to library school and see what happens. And that's kind of like how I've had to keep rolling with it. I applied to Know Your Meme one night. Like I found it while I was Googling something else. And I was like, dear Know Your Meme, I am in library school and I would like to help you build your website. That's all. This is my favorite meme. Bye. And it was like such a silly email, but they ended up emailing me back. And it turned into an incredible experience where, and again, like the internet was so different in 2011. I remember when I had interned, it was the summer that Antoine Dodson happened, where it was the hide your kids, hide your wife meme. And Kenyatta Cheese, an incredibly smart human who was working at Know Your Meme at the time, he's one of the co-founders, he asked, like, why are the clips that always go viral, like, people of color in really poor neighborhoods just, like, trying to talk about their experiences? And that was the first time I ever really thought about internet culture in like this perspective of like, what is this saying about us as a people, as a world? Like, and working and learning under him was was life-changing for me, in that like I had thought of the internet as just this place where funny things happened, and like you could be like, you could do whatever and no one cared. But he was the first person to say like, no, these are like, this is real life, even though it's all behind a screen. Like there's more to it than just like, wow, this meme is funny. Like, what is the implication? What does it say that this is the thing that goes viral? And that like lit a fire in me. I was like, oh my God, like all I want to do is figure out why these things make sense to us and why we are driven to participate in them. That's why like a lot of my work at Know Your Meme was focused on communities, and why like certain communities ended up doing X, Y, or Z, or like I did a lot of hashtag work as as it makes sense to what I'm interested in, but like trying to, I don't want to say finding a formula, but trying to really dig into the why behind every single thing we do. And then when I went to Tumblr, I really was interested in being platform side, because like I loved the space that Tumblr offered people. And I had really big dreams of building fandometrics, which was like, to me, platforms do, I have like a very strong opinion about how like trending interfaces work. And to be able, like Tumblr was a black box. When I wrote my thesis on Tumblr at Rutgers, there was this thing called Tumblarity, which was a metric that took into account like how much you're posting, like what you're posting about, how many people follow you. And it was like the very convoluted number that made no sense, and they never explained it. And then they took it away in the middle of writing my thesis. And the thesis was about how people use sentence tags and whether or not that led to a higher popularity, a higher Tumblarity. And when they took that away, Tumblr had no more metrics. Like you couldn't see follower count. And that was the only place on the internet. And I think it still might be the only place on the internet outside of like Snapchat where you don't know who, like how followed someone is. And like it democratizes what content you put out there. Cause like someone with 10 followers can have a really big impact on the cultural conversation. And that like, to me, was so interesting, because like it's still a numbers game, but it's a different kind of numbers game. And the way that the numbers game depended on metadata was just like, it made my heart sing. So it was really amazing to be able to work on that for so long, and really kind of define how the platform, like how the metadata informs the platform and vice versa. We went on another journey. I'm sorry. I
was there the whole way. You're totally fine. That was great. And also definitely need to keep us posted about this book thing, because I'm ready to read it.
Let me write the proposal.
One thing at a time.
So we are getting ready to wrap up. I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but I was going to ask Amanda, now that I'm curious, what your favorite meme is. Or if, I guess, I don't know if you can choose only one, but Christy and I were talking about the boat ones this week. Like, I really love all those boat. They're so great.
I'm obsessed with the boat, because we are all the boat. I tweeted this a couple days ago, like we're all obsessed with this boat because we are all stuck. Yeah. we have all been in our own Suez Canal. And yeah, it's super wholesome too. Like
2020 is Suez Canal, I guess. 2021, 2020, like
yeah, the whole pandemic. But
like every government in the world and all the people were just that little excavator at the base of the container ship, like chipping
We're
away.
trying.
And all what we need is the tide to lift us.
Yeah. Thank you, moon. And that's like something that's so funny to me too, because like there has been such this resurgence in witchcraft. Like here's the moon coming to save the boat. I just think it's
we've all been home for so long. Everyone's like rediscovering all the things that they forgot because they're like, let me reorganize this closet that I never opened in 10 years. And
yeah,
all the stuff is in that closet.
Wait, is this actually a thing that like there's been a resurgence in witchcraft?
Yeah,
that's
like
great.
Witchcraft, astrology, everything's like all these latent things, tarot card readings, like everyone's trying to be really tuned in.
I'm apparently tuning into the universe then, because I've never been interested in any of that in my life, for like, not because I think it's bad, just like different thing. And I got to the end of Buffy and I was just like, now seems like a good time to become a witch.
Yes. Well,
the
way Buffy is the best.
Yeah.
But the way that I've seen it in kind of like a meme internet culture context is like, we just spent the whole year plus like trying to survive this thing that we can't control, that is very like, it's very natural, like it's not technological, it's just something that like is a natural thing that like none of us can fix it. Like science can curb it, but like no one can undo it.
Limitations. Yeah, it's
yes. So a lot of people, like, it's why cottagecore was so big last year, like people wanting to be more in touch with farms and gardening. Like witchcraft is this spirituality that is super in touch with the earth and like all this shit that we can't touch. So it like it all makes sense in the bigger picture.
I'll fill you in as I was born here, but I grew up in South America, so I'll hook you up, no worries.
Yes, thank you.
All things occult. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but I'm sorry, man. I didn't know if you had a favorite meme or not, or
oh yeah. I don't know. I have so many. Like my life is surrounded by memes. My favorite like meme object, I will share that with you if I can get it out. So y'all know what shipping is, right? Like in fandom. 1 year Tumblr sponsored a party for the Supernatural fandom, and this was the like little thing in the goodie bag. So it's my Destiel ship.
Oh, I love Supernatural too. It's almost on as long as Grey's Anatomy has been on.
Yeah. Supernatural as a fandom, just like,
that's crazy to see that grow from like how the show started to where it is now. Always blew my mind. Forever. It skyrocketed. It was just so crazy how that just grew so exponentially. And they have their own con and all that. It was wild.
I have been to one.
Oh, I would have wanted to go.
It was an experience. If it ever happens again, highly recommend.
All right, then we're going. That's it, all of us. Our group outing.
I love this for us.
This will be what we have to look forward to once the pandemic is over.
You gotta have something.
Yeah. Should I watch Supernatural?
No.
You don't need to. Yeah, you don't need
no.
You just need to know Jensen Ackles and Dean Winchester. No, Sam Winchester played Dean in Gilmore Girls.
Yes.
If you know that, then you're like, good, no worries. But I guess we'll wrap it up. Amanda, I did want to ask if you could drop your LinkedIn or your contact info, or so that we can also connect it with the video once we upload everything.
Yeah.
Or if otherwise, you don't want it on the video, we can just when we like send this out on the listserv, I'll like drop your info in the email.
Yeah.
So it's going to Rutgers people and not like the entire internet and YouTube or whatever.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very easy to Google. It's fine.
But thank you so much for taking the time out and for coming to talk to us. I know this will definitely get a lot of replays later on.
Awesome.
There was a lot of interest in it. So it's just the timing may not have been the best, but
yeah, no, this is good. I like this crew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, do you want to stop recording and then